Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Maruti Janjira. The Maruti Janjira is an ancient fort in India steeped in history and mystery. These days, it's a national tourist hotspot, but in the past, it protected locals from attacks perpetrated by both the British and the Portuguese. It goes all the way back to the 15th century, with its origins being quite simple. The fishermen who lived in the area, people whose lives depended on fish from the sea, built a wooden fortress on some coastal rocks to protect themselves from pirates. That was a pretty serious problem back then, and this small wooden fortress out on the coast was great protection. It made the pirates think twice before they attacked. Over the years, the fortress was improved. Turrets were installed, huge bastions were erected, and cannons and guns were placed to rain fire down on sea invaders. It's believed that at one point, the fortress had at least 572 cannons. It was an almost indestructible island of stone and gunpowder. They could shoot in any direction with more force than any ship could defend itself against. But after so many years as a powerful blockade, the Maruti Janjira fort is not the wonderful structure it was long ago. Out of the 572 cannons, there are only 3 left standing. Other attractions at the fort include a royal palace, mosques, houses of noblemen, stables, granaries, and underground tunnels. Many of these structures are connected, and you can also see freshwater tanks that sustain the residents for long periods of time. Number 9. Idanre Hill. Idanre Hill is a tiny, invisible village in the Nigerian state of Ondo. But just by looking at pictures of this place, you would never think it was in West Africa. It looks like something out of a fantasy, with one of the strangest and yet captivating landscapes in the world. This is because the town was built in the middle of a collection of giant boulders called the Idanre Boulders. These are enormous stones of an igneous batholith formed over 500 million years ago. Across the grassy landscape, they rise like smooth mountains and disappear into the clouds. But that's just the landscape. The history here is equally fascinating. The people who live amongst the boulders, mists, and grassy valleys of Idanre Hill did so for thousands of years in complete secrecy. It wasn't until the 1800s that they were contacted by Western civilization. They were perfectly untouched, living simplistic lives in a remote region of Africa. Being surrounded by impassable mountains had made them somewhat impervious to attack. They had lived in their village in peace and tranquility until about 200 years ago. Then they were invaded by the modern world. The native Yoruba community who live in Idanre Hill worshipped gods based on the huge Idanre boulders until the 1800s. But they don't worship their earthly idols any longer, thanks to Christian missionaries in 1894, who basically eradicated all previous belief systems. Most people here are Christian now, though they do still keep some of their traditions. Number 8. Aztec Floating Gardens. In Mexico City, a mysterious Aztec home has been discovered. The ruins of this residential dwelling are over 800 years old, constructed near the last days of the Aztec Empire. It was discovered by researchers with Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History in the Centro neighborhood. Workers were modernizing the area, adding electrical power substations, when they came across the unbelievable ruins. The abode spans over 4,300 square feet. It was built sometime between 1200 and 1521. Based on that time frame, experts are confident the house was right on the border of 2 major neighborhoods in the capital city of Tenochtitlan. But here's what's really fascinating. The entire area today seems moderate enough, with simple houses, businesses, tangles of electric cords overhead, and cars honking in the streets. But 800 years ago, the neighborhood was rich with waterways and nature. The archaeologists discovered a jetty where boats would have loaded and unloaded cargo. The house had its own dock and probably would have been at the edge of a lake or a city canal. And that's not all the archaeologists found. Underneath the floor of the house, they discovered funerary vessels, the remains of several infants, as well as tools, and an enormous stone statue. They also discovered evidence that after the Spanish invasion of the city, this house, which probably belonged to someone of great wealth, was transformed into a public bathhouse. The team uncovered leftovers of bathroom floor tiles, bulky pipes, and a drainage system. along with secure concrete plates, thermal resources that were exposed to high temperatures, and European building materials. First, it was a person's home, then the Spanish turned it into a spa. Number 7. The medieval Outer Hebrides. An incredibly rare medieval site was just discovered in Scotland, in the Outer Hebrides. Water engineers were digging up a field to lay some new pipe on the Isle of Lewis when they found some ancient ruins. They came across pits, post holes, and stone remnants of what appears to have been a sheep management facility. The researchers also discovered over 100 scraps of pottery, fish bones, and other unidentified animal remains. According to archaeologist Alastair Rees, this site probably dates back to about the 14th century. This was when the most powerful rulers of northern Scotland were being deposed. The region of the Outer Hebrides was shrinking, and the people were leaving. Then, in 1493, the great John MacDonald II had his land seized by the tyrannical James IV of Scotland. Because of the turmoil that was happening in this part of Scotland between 600 and 400 years ago, not much from that time remains. There is almost no physical evidence of the medieval period in the Western Isles. That's what makes this discovery so rare. We don't actually know what the medieval site is. Judging by the animal bones and the size, it was probably some kind of sheep farm, but nobody has any idea who lived here, if they did indeed raise sheep, or why the place was abandoned. Number 6. Gabal el-Haridi. Gabal el-Haridi is without a doubt one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in the Sohag region of Egypt. Material has been found here from the 6th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, from the days of occupation by the late Roman Empire, and even from the Coptic period. The Sohag region of Egypt has been occupied ever since about 2700 BC, for about 5,000 consecutive years. The most recent season of excavation saw researchers uncover a mysterious mud brick tower. They believe the tower, which was erected overlooking the Nile River and directly beside the major thoroughfare leading into the region, was a guard tower. The mud brick structure was probably occupied by guards who watched day and night for anyone moving up the road. Then they could bully travelers for money, saying it was taxes, and they could keep a register of everyone entering their part of Egypt. This was during the Ptolemaic dynasty under the rule of Ptolemy III, between 246 and 222 BC. There have been all kinds of other amazing discoveries here as well. The team also came across a temple built at the same time as the tower. It's one of the most splendid temples in this part of the country, dedicated to the Egyptian goddess Isis. Isis is one of the main characters in the Egyptian mythos, resurrected by Osiris to give birth to the great god Horus. Plus, over 85 tombs have been found in the area carved into the side of a mountain. There are so many tombs and burials and mummies hiding underground that researchers have barely scratched the surface at Sohag. Number 5. Bocconi Ruins. The Bocconi Ruins in South Africa, in the hills of the Mpumalanga province, were probably once part of a large settlement built by the Bocconi people in the 16th century. That would make them only about 500 years old. Some historians believe the ruins are much older, with some radical theories claiming them to be as old as 250,000 years. That's quite a difference of opinion, but nobody has ever been able to properly date the ruins. Hardly anything remains of whatever was once standing here. The ruins are nothing but the remnants of walls forming a crude labyrinth. According to Professor Peter Delius from the University of Witwatersrand, the Bocconi people of South Africa practiced advanced agriculture and had sophisticated technological know-how. They altered the landscape to better manage their livestock and enhance their agricultural yields through irrigation in the grasslands. Researchers don't know exactly when they were doing all of this. The theory of them being 250,000 years old is not a realistic theory. It would mean that Paleolithic humans were building structures in this part of the world when everywhere else they were living in caves, living primitive lives. The Bocconi ruins remain a mystery, since we don't know when they were made, what purpose they served, or even if they were part of some great lost city of South Africa. Researchers believe it's possible to save the ancient sites if the government invests more in the tourism expansion industry. It will not only preserve the Bocconi Ruins, but also make the residents surrounding them aware of their existence. Protecting and restoring the ruins could also create tourism prospects and boost the local economy. Number 4. Underground Turkey. An archaeological excavation in Turkey has revealed what researchers say could be the largest underground city on Earth. A mysterious cave was discovered in the province of Mardin, and within that cave, researchers found passageways leading deep underground, a subterranean maze of water wells, food silos, mysterious altars, and dwellings dating back to the 2nd century AD. Gani Tarkan from the local Mardin Museum, the lead excavator on the project, told news sources that the region had been inhabited in solitude for 1900 years. He believes the underground city was first built as a hiding place where early Christians could escape persecution. But as more and more families accepted Christianity, more people moved into the underground city and it flourished. Then, after several hundred years, when Christianity became widespread and mainstream, the city kept on being used because it was already so vast. What researchers don't know yet is why the city was abandoned or how everyone forgot about it. The tunnels were in use until just a few decades ago by the looks of things, and yet everyone forgot it was there. It's one of over 200 ancient underground settlements in Turkey, but by far the biggest. Researchers say it could have held up to 70,000 people, more than most common cities in North America, and all underground, deep in the dirt, and far from the sunlight of the world above. Number 3. Zeuss Temple in Egypt. In Greek mythology, Zeus was the god of gods. He was the lord of the sky, the omnipresent king of thunder and lightning, who lived on Mount Olympus and looked down on all the lowly humans below. But what many people don't realize is that Zeus's influence went far beyond the borders of Greece. And just recently, a temple dedicated to the most famous Greek deity in history was discovered in the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt. The mysterious temple was made in honor of Zeus Cassios, a somewhat unique version of the Greek god. This version of Zeus was more closely connected to Mount Cassios than Mount Olympus. This mountain, which is on the border of modern Syria and Turkey, is connected to the mythical battle which took place between Zeus and the great monster Typhon. Zeus won the battle using his lightning bolt and prevented Typhon from taking over the cosmos. And because the mountain, known today as Jebel Akra, is frequently besieged by thunderstorms, it makes sense that the ancient people of the region saw it as having ties to Zeus. The temple was identified by Egyptian archaeologists, but it was no easy feat. It's utterly destroyed, with its huge pink granite pillars broken in pieces, probably from an earthquake. Researchers found granite blocks and fragments of a staircase, but that's pretty much it. Number 2. The mysterious discovery of Machu Picchu. Nearly everyone knows what Machu Picchu is, or at least they know what it looks like and they know it's in Peru. But even if you're familiar with this great Inca city, you might not know how it was actually discovered, because just over 100 years ago, this was still a lost city, never seen by modern humans. The man who first discovered Machu Picchu was Hiram Bingham, an American adventurer born in Hawaii in 1875. His parents were missionaries and hoped that he would follow in their footsteps, but he didn't. After going to Yale University in 1894, he became fascinated with Latin American history. He married Alfreda Mitchell in 1900, the heiress to the Tiffany jewelry fortune. Well, exploring is expensive. In 1906, he retraced the route Simón Bolívar took through Venezuela and Colombia in the 1820s. He explored trade routes in South America in 1909, following an ancient caravan trail all the way from Buenos Aires to Lima. And in 1911, he went in search of a mysterious lost city. Rumor had been circulating about a lost city for quite some time. It was said to be the last refuge of the Inca people as they fought against their Spanish conquerors in the 1530s. Hiram journeyed to Cusco, traveled on foot through the sweltering heat of the jungle, and then wound up high in the Andes Mountains. And that was when he found Machu Picchu. He spent days climbing up the mountains until he discovered a small hut occupied by a family of peasants. They were shocked to see foreigners and agreed to show Hiram the ruins in the mountains. And that was when he found the Inca stonework of Machu Picchu covered in trees, overgrown with tangles of vines, almost completely blanketed in moss and crowded with bamboo thickets. The Machu Picchu you see today has actually been cleaned and cleared. When it was found in 1911, nobody knew what it was. It didn't have a name, and it was covered in a thick cloud forest. Number 1. The Great Cholula Pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Cholula is the biggest pyramid in the entire world, currently buried under a mountain in Mexico, with a Spanish church sitting on top of it. You wouldn't even know there was a pyramid simply by looking, since it's all overgrown with grass and trees. The only thing you can see is the church way up at the top, along with the ancient ruins all around its base. The pyramid was built over 2,000 years ago, and it practically dwarfs the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yet the origin of this monument still puzzles archaeologists to this day. It has architectural elements from the Teotihuacan culture as well as from El Tajín civilization, but nobody knows who built it or why it was abandoned. One theory is that the Aztecs were using it and then ran away when the Spanish came, but before they left, they buried the pyramid with dirt to preserve a piece of their culture. Maybe they knew the Spanish were already destroying every piece of indigenous heritage, and so the pyramid was disguised so that it would be preserved if they could ever return. How surprised are you to know the biggest pyramid in the world is actually in Mexico? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to hit that subscribe button. See you soon. Bye!